Mike.
Jake, hey, how you doing? What brings you to my LinkedIn page? A place where
So
I
funny.
rarely go.
Yeah, just so you all know, Mike loves social media, and this is streaming on LinkedIn, YouTube, and then Mike's favorite social media, Facebook.
And that is unfortunate, yeah.
Yeah, Mike likes to pretend that this doesn't actually stream on Facebook, but he's wrong because I run marketing, so I can put it wherever I want. Hey, speaking of fun things, I got to tell you. So we had planned today to do a webinar about O365 security. And life happens. One of the presenters had a family event that meant
hmm
that we had to postpone the webinar a week. And so what we did instead was we did office hours today at noon. And just, some of the folks who are connecting with the webinar showed up, and Fred Langston, who's the co-founder of the company, along with Mike, decided, came. Folks came and asked a bunch of questions. And so I have a question for anybody watching this. If you want us to do regular office hours with no agenda, you just have security questions, and you can ask Mike or Fred. Let me know. I'm happy to schedule those. That was actually, it was super great. And speaking of being with Mike, we are
Yes.
going to a conference next week, aren't we?
Another conference. You forgot the word another. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to Association of Washington Cities.
Yeah,
So
some of our
these are
favorite
these are
folks.
the
Yeah.
little ones. These are the little cities,
Mm-hmm.
and this is going to be. I think this is going to be a cool conference. It's in Yakima.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and means I can go stop, pick up some wine. It's great.
Yep, that's right.
You were just in the Wall Street. Speaking of not small, you were just in the Wall Street Journal and just did a podcast with SC Media, right?
hmm Yeah, and the podcast was that was actually today, and that was really good. Bradley Barth is a well-respected reporter in cybersecurity and shows up in a lot of places, and so talk to him about sourcing, culture, and retention of analysts in a managed service operation, which was a fascinating conversation.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll look forward to that being published, and then we'll put it on our LinkedIn page and our
Yep,
Facebook page.
we don't have a Facebook page, do we? I guess we. Never mind.
We do. We do. And you've told me to close it a bunch of times, and I just don't. That's just how that goes. So it goes. It's why we don't let Mike anywhere near marketing. And if you have ever watched Mike, be live, you've seen behind him are these really crappy old window dressings,
That's
and they're
right.
gone because we have a new office.
Because we moved. We are on the sixth floor of the Chase Bank building in
Mm-hmm.
fabulous Bremerton, Washington, with views out the window of the marina and the ferries coming and going, and it's nice.
Cool. And now for your favorite segment, Mike was right. You were right about the Oldsmar water breach.
That's right. That's right. Just
So
like I
just as
said,
a
this was
just as a
not a
let
terrorist.
me remind folks what we're talking about. So this go back a couple of Super Bowls. Just before the Super Bowl, the water plant outside of Tampa in Oldsmar, Florida, had what they called a large cyber event. And I forget some levels were changed remotely. I
Sodium
forget what it
hydroxide.
was.
hmm
Yep. And there was worries that it was the Russians, the Iranians, the somebody breaking in, and they were going to go after all of the water. And and Mike at the time said, "This doesn't seem like nation state activity." And Mike, what happened?
Well, the story that they're telling us. So at the time, I said, "Look, this was not a terrorist. This was not a criminal. This was not, for the purpose of extortion. This was not, disruption of critical infrastructure. This was a doofus," is what I said. Verbatim. That's what I said. What it turns out, right? I thought it was some, criminal of opportunity, not knowing what they were getting into. Turns out it was the guy working at the plant who eventually said, hey, this thing happened and I shut it down real fast, so I saved us. He was actually banging on his keyboard at the time, and that's what made it happen. So, again, jumping to conclusions and, not looking at all of the facts around something and going, critical infrastructure under attack. No way. No way. So, yes, called it.
Okay, there's a lot of other big news there too, that we want to talk about today. One is the FBI warning.
Which one? Because there's a lot of them. You mean the one about? Uh, I think the most recent one was the one that came out last week, and it was about charging stations, like in airports, right? So, like
Mm-hmm.
the USB stuff that you can plug your stuff into. And when we do security awareness training, which we are going to do this Friday, which actually is tomorrow, I can say tomorrow. Um, we always bring that up. Don't use those. This is part of caring for the information you carry around on the computer known as your phone. Well, now the FBI is saying, hey, those airport charging stations, don't use them. And I think it's part of this bigger narrative of sourcing technology and understanding exactly all the components that are in something. All of that stuff comes from, or a lot of it comes from other countries. And so when you plug into that airport charging station and get your phone some juice, you have no idea what's on the other side of that USB port.
No, I mean you don't, and this is also part of the segment that's called Mike was right. Um,
Again,
Again, this is Mike's favorite segment. You want to talk about a couple other things. The Intel leak, Canadian pipeline.
yeah, okay. So this intel leak is really like blown up, right? Now that the guy's been arrested and everything. But one of the pieces of information that was leaked said that there was a Russian group that had been able to access Canadian Pipeline Company and showed screenshots that they sent to the Kremlin, or they sent to the GRU or somebody, saying that, look, we have access to the control system here, and we can open and close valves, and we can do other things. Presumably, hey, what would you like us to do with this? Do you want to take this over? And at the time, and I, bunch of magazines called up and said, hey, what do you think of this? It's like, no, no, I don't think this is right. I think this is disinformation. Even if somebody got a hold of old pictures of control systems that the HMI, the human machine interface,
Hmm.
they had no such access. And if anything at all, um, they got access to a remote access, RDP or something like that,
Hmm.
guessed a password, maybe exploited a vulnerability, but they were nowhere near the actual control systems. And so, and again, they said that in the beginning of the article, they said there had been an expensive disruption. No such thing happened. There was no disruption. People at the pipeline company are kind of scratching their heads. So, be careful what you read and how you interpret these things.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Healthcare.
Yeah.
There, over the course, it's every week we cover what's going on in healthcare for a number of reasons. One of them, a lot of our customers are in healthcare. Second is, we're about to be able to announce that we're going to be we are once again one of the preferred providers of the American Hospital Association
Mhm.
for managed detection and response, and for some of the other services we do as well. So we always talk about healthcare. Mike, what's going on in healthcare?
Well, a couple of things. I thought it was interesting that Microsoft and a hospital group um, got together with a court order to, how they take over an infrastructure and they can take over domain names and things like that. Well,
Hmm.
there was some infrastructure that was used to conduct ransomware attacks against hospitals. Microsoft snuffed them. So that was cool. Okay. One for the good guys. Um, these killnet characters, which is
They were launching the DDoS attacks, right?
that's right. Well, they
Yeah.
continue to be very troubling, and there is another set of warnings that have come out about how these activist and volunteer groups in Russia are starting to become more and more dangerous and really starting to go after infrastructure. And that is extremely. And it started with these killnet characters. All right, so DDoS, if you do it against a website and you're a retailer, okay, that's going to cost some money. If you do it against a hospital, especially a hospital call center, or the portals that people use to get their health information, right? When you've been messaged by your doctor and you really want to see those test results and can't get to that, that's more than an annoyance. And so, these characters have been doing these DDoS attacks, and for whatever reason, this has fallen off a little bit. And I think it's because they're regrouping with others to do things that are a little more sophisticated.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Um,
say if you're doing low sophistication attacks, and everyone's like, but the name of your group is KillNet. Yeah, it's a
kill
pretty
that.
good. That's a pretty good indicator of where you want to go with that, right?
Yeah, that's good branding, I guess, right?
Hmm.
And the other thing that seems to be under attack and in the news a lot are cloud applications. So increasingly, those are being targeted to deliver malware in healthcare. So, I mean, we don't need to go on and on and on about healthcare. We know how under attack they are and how under resourced they are, and it just doesn't seem to be going away. It seems to be getting worse.
Yeah, so we talk a lot about healthcare because it involves people dying. We saw one of the studies last year, and then another one this year that bad outcomes in
Hmm.
healthcare happen when there's a ransomware attack. They're way up. This is not a huge surprise, but there have actually been studies that say it. There are, other industries also getting hit that don't make as big a headlines. One of them is manufacturing.
Hmm.
Um,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah,
And
and what is it? The World Economic Forum said manufacturing has they're way up as well.
I think the wording in the report was a doubling in 2022. And so we have talked about the important sectors that we want to work in, that we market to, and they're the ones that are critical, under resourced. And when I say critical, it's at the scale we actually live our lives. And we said it's local government, it's health, and manufacturing needs to be in there too, right? So those are the three really that we're working with. And sure enough, and this one was easy to predict because increasingly manufacturing is automated, robotic, right? And
Mhm.
every time you increase that technology footprint, you're bringing in more vulnerabilities and making you know people start to lick their chops coming after you. And manufacturing is one of those things where if it goes down, they know exactly on a per minute basis how much money they're going to lose. That's why they are good ransomware victims, because they will pay.
I don't like to hear good and ransomware in the same sentence. Nope,
Yeah.
nope, 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 nope.
Yeah.
Hey, government. When one of the things that everybody talks about nation state attacks, and Iran has been in the news a lot.
They have been in the news a lot. And I think these things are kind of connected. We're warned that they're carrying out destructive attacks, making it look like it's a criminal act, right? Like it's ransomware. And you and I, we talk about that. We predicted that for a long time
Hmm.
because of the difficulty in attribution. It's easy to hide behind all this criminality that's going on.
Russia,
But
Russia. Sorry,
Russia,
yeah,
you're
go
right.
ahead.
But the bigger story is the Department of Defense and CISA together cooperated, and I think it was CISA that, because they monitor election infrastructure,
Hmm.
they caught Iranians that had access to voting results, and I can't remember exactly where this was, or I can't remember even if that's actually reported, but. So CISA called up the DoD and said, "Hey, we need a favor." And so DOD came in and kicked him out, apparently before the voting results could be released early and used as propaganda. And, and in fact, if something like that gets released early, what are Americans going to think? Oh, okay, we've been hacked, can't trust the counts, right? And that was probably the intent there, but they got him. And so just in the last few days, there have been a lot of news pieces uh, kind of with DOD and CISA patting themselves on the back.
Yeah,
And good on them. I think bigger things, though, yes, there's Iranians and they're getting a little more destructive. The Wagner group that's working for Russia in the war in Ukraine, there's warnings coming out about Wagner like cyber activists that do not respect boundaries and are really bent on disruption, destruction. So, this murmuring about activists and volunteers is all starting to become more of a vocabulary we can all hear, if that metaphor makes sense.
yep, yep, sure does.
Yep.
Um, the the other thing that we talk about a lot here is Congress and what Congress needs to do. In the last couple of weeks, I've seen not a lot of action there, but there's a lot of folks saying, "Hey, Congress needs to get behind this." And I saw an RSA. So RSA is a big cybersecurity conference that's
Going
wrapping
on
up this
now.
week in San Francisco. A lot of people talking about, a lot of people talking about it as well there. What what's the latest in Congress, Mike? Are they actually going to take any cyber action here?
Well, so there's actions that are required of Congress to support the national cybersecurity strategy that came out 6 weeks ago or whatever. I don't know that they will do anything about that, because some of that is you're going to have to regulate the private sector, and they're going to have, they need some kind of liability framework for products that are sold that are not secure, or they don't have a plan to keep them secure after they're deployed, things like that. I don't know if they're going to take that up, but a lot of groups are strongly urging Congress to boost the amount of money being offered to states in the form of grants for election security. And that they probably will do
Hmm.
as the election comes up. Well, I mean, unless you're one of the people who wants to just fly by the seat of the pants so that you can come in later and go, well, we can't trust it. Well, if we're monitoring, the living what out of all of these systems, it's pretty easy to prove nothing happened here.
Yep.
And I think Congress is finally coming around and going, okay, let's go ahead and fund the monitoring and the efforts to secure the election infrastructure. CISA did a really good job of that in the last election, and there's no reason that states can't bring in some money. And what they need the money for is not to harden up the election systems. I mean, that's all done. What they need money for is to quickly detect and counter misinformation about elections and voting. I think I told you once I went to a exercise with a state. It was supposed to be a cyber exercise. Was nothing of the kind. It was all about disinformation and how do we counter this stuff quickly, and set the public straight when somebody's thrown. And a bunch of articles about China getting really really good at their disinformation and really starting to bump up on this is a sovereignty issue, and messing with our elections kind of just in an in your face kind of way. They're not even timid about it anymore.
They're not even timid anymore.
There's another thing in
I don't know that they've been timid for a long time, Mike.
well, but, it used to be espionage and
I get it.
intellectual property theft and stuff like that. There is another thing that Congress has taken up, and this is just going to make everybody mad all over again, right? I don't know if you remember the Earn It Act, and I can't remember what that stands for, but it's about they want encryption to be able to be accessed by law enforcement, and so you
Oh,
can't have end-to-end encryption
yeah, yeah,
anymore.
yeah, 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 yeah. I remember seeing
So
that.
all the privacy protecting application, everything you use, WhatsApp, Signal,
Right,
whatever,
right, 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 right.
they want to be able to break into those, and so this is going to be a fist fight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. Um, Threats and phones, Mike. We got just a few minutes here left. What do you got?
Oh man, iPhones. There was that invisible so this is just like that Outlook thing that happened a few weeks back, where you could get an already expired calendar invitation, and when it made a little bell ring, it launched malware. All right, well that was Outlook, and now apparently iPhones have this same problem. So this invisible calendar invite drops this Quadream software, which is it's like Pegasus, right? NSO
Yeah,
Pegasus,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
It's
Hmm.
bad stuff.
Right.
And that's a bad one. So if you haven't patched your iPhone yet, I mean, the patches are out. CISA keeps warning of, commonly exploited flaws, and the latest is the Veritas backup agent. Get on top of that if you haven't already. QNAP is another one, and QNAP 0 days were being exploited, and a survey using Shodan showed that 80,000 devices were still vulnerable. Wow. Fortinet, the CVE is 41331, and the product is Forta Presence. Get that patched. VMware and this is an odd one, and we were expecting, at some point somebody's going to start, hacking on Bluetooth. So this is for VMware Workstation and Fusion software, and it does a debuffer overflow in the part of the functionality that allows you to share host Bluetooth devices.
Yeah.
And let's see, there's one under exploit right now, and I can't remember the name of it. It's about printers. It's called PaperCut.
Oh, that just came up in our office hours. Yes, indeed.
Oh, did it?
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is a 9.8 severity, and apparently this is a this is the first time I'd ever heard of it. This is a very widely used product. So get that patch because it is under exploit now.
Yeah, I mean, it just came up. What was it, 25 minutes ago, half hour ago, whenever that was.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other threats and vulns, or is that it?
There's lots more, but that's all I'm going to talk about. There's
All right.
many.
So at the end of all of these, now after depressing us, you got to make us smile. You got to make us go, What do you got, Mike?
All of the smileys these days are all about AI and the chat GPT, and I'm going to call it performative AI. So they publish these stories about these odd conversations they have, and so this researcher is tasking an AI agent with destroying humanity, and in this conversation, this one's called Chaos GPT. Is now working on controlling humanity through manipulation. And so in this conversation, Chaos GPT actually brought up Twitter. And the quote is, Twitter provides an excellent platform where I can manipulate people into doing my bidding while attempting to conceal my true intentions. Now, I actually think that says more about Twitter than it does about AI chatbots. But they're plotting against us already.
When you say they, do you mean Twitter? Do you mean the AI?
No, well, I mean, what happens when Twitter has native AI chatbot functionality integrated into it? Then we're really up a creek.
Might have more factual information than Twitter does now, though.
Possibly, that's a bit of a train wreck.
All right, everybody, thanks for joining us, Mike.
Yep,
it's always great to talk to you live.
Good to see you, and we'll look forward to seeing you in 3D next week.
I am so happy, by the way, that those ridiculous Venetian blinds are gone behind you now. I'm going to go delete all of our old videos because that has been embarrassing.
You know what? I'm going to get a green screen for behind me, and I'm going to put Venetian blinds on it.
With one broken. That's great. Sure. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. If you need anything, shoot me an email, jake@criticalinsight.com. You can email Mike, but anyway, shoot me an email. See y'all later. Bye.
All right. Bye.